Hey Eagle fans, it's EaglefanKarl. This is going to be my check-in and preview prediction video for the big Sunday night matchup against the Dallas Cowboys. And this is obviously a really important game for the Eagles because they're one game back of the Cowboys in the division. So if we win this game, we'd be tied with them, and we would have the tiebreaker, having beaten them heads up. That being said, if we lose the game, it's not the end of the world because obviously we have a lot of division games ahead of us, and we still get to play them at the end of the season in Philadelphia. So it's not an absolute must-win game, but it's a game that if they do win, it would really put them in the driver's seat as it relates to the division. Now, all that said, I think it's going to be really difficult for the Eagles to win this game if you're looking at it in terms of just a statistics standpoint. The Cowboys have been really good at continuing to keep the ball on the ground, using Ezekiel Elliott, and just running the ball constantly. I know there's been a lot of talk about Dak Prescott versus Carson Wentz and the two rookie quarterbacks. But when you look at the Dallas Cowboys offense, it's all about their running game. Dak Prescott does not have to do that much in that offense as compared to Carson Wentz with the Eagles offense, where he's required to do a lot more. And that one of the reasons why the Eagles have struggled over the last few weeks has been because Carson Wentz has been going through some of those rookie growing pains. So it's really not a fair comparison when you're looking at the two quarterbacks in terms of what they're asked to do and, frankly, the weapons they have around them. Dak Prescott does have the running game he can fall back on. He's got probably one of the best offensive lines in football, whereas Carson Wentz is played against a really good offensive line early on, and then when they lose Lane Johnson, it obviously takes a step back. The running backs are okay, but they're certainly not all pros. And our wide receivers are really nothing to be afraid of. And the one area where I thought maybe going into the season that we would be on par with them in terms of threats would be in the tight end position. But Zach Ertz has really sort of underperformed this year, so you really even have to give the edge there to the Cowboys with Jason Witten. So if you're really looking at all of the offensive, from the complete offensive side of the football, Dallas really has the advantage there. But really, obviously, when it comes right down to it, the matchup is not our offense against their offense. It's our offense against their defense and our defense against their offense. So let's really take a look at that breakdown in terms of where the teams stand with respect to those matchups. And unfortunately, when you look at the matchups, it's really not that great for the Eagles either. Certainly the stronger part of our team has been our defense. And when you look at our defense against their offense, really the problem you've got is the strongest part of the Cowboys' offense is their running game. In fact, they are tops in the league in terms of yards per game on the ground. And if you look at our defense, the weaker part of our defense has been our rushing defense. Sort of middle of the pack when it comes to the running defense. We're 14th in the league in running defense, but we are 5th in the league when it comes to passing defense. Overall, our team is 5th in overall yards against other teams' offenses, and we are 3rd when it comes up to how many points we're giving up. You put that all against what the Cowboys have been doing. They've been moving the ball well and been scoring points. Like I said, they're first in running offense, but they're 19th in pass offense. So they're not really moving the ball through the air. Like I said, Dak Prescott is not asked to do that much. However, that all adds up to them being 3rd overall in total yards on offense. So that's really sort of the dilemma we've got, is probably the weakest part of our defense is going up against the strongest part of their offense. And that's why I really don't like this matchup. I think going into this game, we really have to worry about trying to stop their running game. And that means potentially exposing our secondary in one-on-one matchups. Because I really think we need to sort of cheat safeties and linebackers towards stopping the run and really trying to work in that way. Now, ultimately, we were able to have some success with that against the Minnesota Vikings, except we were using it more to bring pressure against Sam Bradford and sort of using more blitzes and those types of things. So our secondary was getting a little more one-on-one coverage last week. So hopefully the defense maybe has started to adjust a little bit to that. Jim Schwartz before last week had really been going completely on a coverage-based defense and wasn't really exposing his secondary. The downside of that was you saw what happened with Detroit and Washington, how they just carved us up in terms of our running game. And if our linebackers are not playing well in terms of tackling, that's going to be a real problem. So how our linebackers play in this game against their running game and making tackles is going to be huge. So a very early sign I'm going to be looking for is how well we're flocking to the ball and really trying to stop Ezekiel Elliott and getting multiple guys trying to bring him down. And I really think that this is the side where I think this game is going to be determined. It's going to be our defense against their offense. That's because in terms of points allowed, we are third in defense in terms of points allowed, and they are seventh in offense in terms of scoring points. So really looking at that breakdown, it's really going to be sort of the immovable object against the unstoppable force. And that's really, we're going to see which of those two sides is going to win this week. Unfortunately, like I said, I just think that the way our defense is constructed is more designed towards stopping teams with a passing attack versus a running attack, and that does not match up well against the Dallas Cowboys. All that said, if we are able to get a lead against this team and force them into throwing the ball more, I think I really like our chances. And that's because when you look at our team, we've been able to really get pressure on the quarterback. In fact, we are third in the league in terms of sacks of opposing teams' quarterbacks. However, once again, we're going up against one of their strengths in the sense that the Dallas Cowboys are second in the league in terms of sacks surrendered. Now, some of that has to do with the fact that they rely so much on their running game, so there's not as many opportunities to sack the quarterback. But I still think it goes to the point that their offensive line is really strong, and getting pressure on Dak Prescott when they do have to throw the ball is going to be really key. He really has not faced that much pressure this year because his team has usually been playing from ahead. So because of that, I think that if we get a lead and then we're able to get pressure on Dak Prescott, that's going to be how we're going to have to win that game. Which brings us to the other side of the ball, of course, then, which is our offense against their defense. And unfortunately, if you look at the stats, we've really sort of taken a few steps back over the last few weeks because we've really struggled moving the ball against Washington and Minnesota. The last 2 weeks really sort of killed us in terms of our yardage. In fact, we are 28th in the league in terms of yards per game on offense. And in terms of our passing attack, it gets even a little worse. We're 29th in the league in passing yards. We're sort of middle of the road when it comes to rushing yards. We're 17th in the league in rushing yards. And the odd stat that sticks out is the fact that through all that, we're 9th in the league in points per game. Now, some of that has to do with the fact that over the last 2 weeks, we've scored 3 touchdowns on defense and special teams. So that's going to skew that statistic a little bit because of the points that we're scoring really not with our offense. And since we have sort of struggled moving the ball lately and scoring points, I think that really raises the question, how are we going to attack this Dallas defense? Overall, their defense is sort of average. They're 17th in the league in yards per game, but they aren't giving up many points. They're 7th in the league in points per game in terms of their defense. So while they're allowing yards, they're really not allowing as much points. So once again, we're going to have to take advantage of opportunities when we do get them to make sure we're putting points on the board. In terms of where they're stronger, this sort of goes against where we are as well. Even though our rushing offense hasn't been that great, we're a little bit better in our rushing offense than our passing offense in terms of where we rank in the league. And that's where Dallas is stronger. They're stronger in the league in their rushing defense than they are in their passing defense, as they're 10th in the league in rushing defense, but they're 21st in the league in passing defense. However, another interesting stat when you're looking at their pass defense is, despite the fact they've been playing with the lead, so teams have had to pass against them, they're 24th in the league in terms of sacks of the quarterbacks. So really, when you look at that stat, I think that does tell us that they have had a difficult time really getting a pass rush against the opposing team's quarterbacks. So hopefully this will be an opportunity for Carson Wentz to get a little time to throw the ball, because as we've seen through the first 6 games that he has played, when he's had time to sit back and have time to make a read and make a good throw, he's been very good. When he's had his struggles is when he's been under constant pressure, like he was in the Washington game, and even to a degree last week against the Minnesota Vikings. So pass protection is going to be really important against this team. I do think, I know I really like to try and keep a balanced, I'm always talking about keeping a balanced attack, run versus pass, but I think we really do need to try and attack this team through the passing game, even though that has been a weakness, because I think if we are able to give Carson time, we can beat this team through the air. And this is really a week for our tight ends to step up. They really have sort of played subpar lately. So this is an opportunity for them to get back in the game, start playing well. And if that's the case, I think we can actually have some success moving the ball against their defense. However, like I said at the beginning of this, the real sort of matchup that worries me the most is our defense against their offense, just because of where they're strongest and where we're strongest. And that's just not a good match for us. Since they run the ball so well, I think Dallas does win this game. Also should be pointed out that they are coming off the bye as well, so they'll be a little more rested. We played a real physical and emotional game last week, so even though this is a division opponent, there is a tendency maybe for there to be a bit of a letdown. And all those things I do not think add up well for us in terms of where we are entering this game. And because of that, I really think that it's going to be hard for us to win this game. So I am going to pick Dallas to win this game. My prediction is going to be Cowboys 20, Eagles 17. I think we keep it close, but ultimately Dallas just has a little bit too much with their running game for us to stop, and I think ultimately they prevail. But leave your comments below. What do you think? Do you think the Eagles have a chance to win this game? Do you think they will win this game? What do you think of the breakdowns? What's more important? Do I rely on statistics too much, as one of my cousins seemed to suggest in the comments a couple weeks back? Let me know what you think, and we'll take a look at where things stand afterwards. I will be traveling this week for work, but I'll try and check in still, even though I'll be on the road after the game. Probably on Monday I'll try and get a video up. Until then, fly Eagles fly.